It started like any other quiet morning out on my ranch. The sun was just peeking over the hills, coffee in hand, and I was enjoying the peaceful view of my long, dusty road stretching out through the countryside. But that peace didn't last long. Out of nowhere, a line of dumper trucks came rumbling down the road, kicking up clouds of dust and making the kind of noise that sends every dog into a frenzy. At first, I thought it was just a one-time thing, maybe a delivery gone wrong. But then more trucks came, and more. Day after day, they tore up my private road, left deep ruts, and dumped gravel and debris like it was their job. Turns out, it was someone's job. The local HOA, a group I'd barely had any run-ins with, decided they needed a shortcut for their latest construction project, and they picked my ranch road without asking. No warning, no commission, just entitlement. Now, I'm a pretty patient guy. Years in law enforcement will teach you not to jump to conclusions. But when I finally asked what was going on, one of their crew guys just waved me off, like I was a nosy neighbor. What they didn't realize was who they were messing with. You see, I'm not just a rancher out here minding my own business. I'm also the county sheriff. And that little detail, well, it's about to change everything. I didn't flash my badge right away. Instead, I watched. Took note of every truck, every driver, and every time they used my land like it was their own. I talked to a couple of neighbors. Turns out I wasn't the only one dealing with the sudden traffic. One of them, an older gentleman who'd lived out here for decades, told me the HOA never sent any letters or asked for permission. They just assumed no one would push back. I started digging into who exactly was behind this project. The HOA president, a sharp-talking real estate type, had been pushing to improve access for a new gated section being built just over the hill. They were running behind schedule, and someone must have decided that cutting across private property would shave a few days off. Except it wasn't just any road. It was a private ranch road that I paid to maintain. And while most folks might have trouble stopping a group like that, I had a few tools they weren't counting on. But I still hadn't said a word to them in an official way. I wanted to see how far they'd go. A few days later, one of their trucks sideswiped my fence, knocking down 2 posts and tearing through part of the barbed wire. No apology, no note, nothing. That was the moment I knew this wasn't just carelessness, it was disrespect. And that's when I decided it was time to pay the HOA a little visit. I drove into town later that week, not in uniform, just jeans and boots, like any other rancher. The HOA office was tucked between a bakery and a lawyer's firm, like they were trying to blend in. I walked in and asked to speak with the president. The lady at the front desk gave me a polite but confused look when I mentioned the road. "Oh, that's just temporary access," she said, like it was no big deal. I nodded, played along, and let her ramble about permits and timelines. But the more she talked, the clearer it became they hadn't pulled any permits. They didn't have easement rights either. They just assumed the road was up for grabs. Meanwhile, back at the ranch, things were getting worse. A neighbor's water line was damaged from all the truck vibrations. Another neighbor's livestock had gotten spooked and busted through a gate. It wasn't just about my road anymore. This was affecting the whole valley. Folks started calling me, not as the sheriff, but as someone they trusted. They'd seen enough to know something was off, but they were scared to speak up. The HOA had a way of throwing their weight around: fines, warnings, even threats of property value drops if people complained too much. What the HOA didn't realize was they'd stirred up more than one hornet's nest. Out here, land means something. Respect means something. And when you break those unspoken rules, folks don't forget, and they sure don't stay quiet for long. By the end of that week, I'd seen enough. My ranch road was nearly unrecognizable: deep ruts, oil stains, trash tossed out like it was a construction dump site. I'd had crews out there trying to fix what they could, but it was like patching a sinking boat. Every time we made progress, another convoy of dumper trucks came rolling through. The final straw. I caught one of their drivers relieving himself right near my horse paddock. No shame, just pure disregard. That night, I met with a few neighbors under the old oak near the creek. We talked quietly, shared photos, compared notes. Everyone had a story. Property damage, trespassing, late-night noise, fences cut without permission. It wasn't just my fight anymore. The HOA had crossed a line, and they didn't even seem to notice or care. I went back through county records, checked for permits, surveyed land boundaries. Everything I needed was there in black and white. The HOA had absolutely no legal access to my road. Not one document gave them the right, but still they came, every morning like clockwork. So I did what I do best. I started building a case. Quietly, carefully. License plates, timestamps, photos, statements. I wasn't just preparing as a landowner, I was preparing as a sheriff. But I still hadn't told them who I was. They saw me as just another local rancher with a few cows and a dusty driveway. That was the part they'd regret the most. Because their biggest mistake wasn't trespassing, it was underestimating me. Just when I thought I had the upper hand, things took a turn I didn't see coming. Early one morning, before the truck started rolling in, I noticed fresh tire tracks cutting off the main path, tracks leading through a part of my pasture that had always been fenced off. I followed them and found a backhoe parked right next to my creek bed, engine still warm. Someone had been out there digging, not just driving through. This wasn't just about road access anymore. They were trying to reroute drainage, probably to support their construction site, but they were doing it on my land. That same day, I got a letter taped to my gate. Not mailed, not delivered properly, just slapped on like a threat. It was from the HOA's attorney, claiming *I* was obstructing public access and that my actions were delaying a county-approved infrastructure improvement. The letter was full of legal jargon and veiled warnings, clearly meant to intimidate. Only problem was, I knew every inch of county code, and I knew the project had never been approved. Still, it was a bold move, meant to push me into backing down. But here's where it got even messier. I ran the attorney's name through our system and discovered a connection. He was the cousin of the HOA president. Suddenly, things weren't just shady, they were personal. They weren't just using my road anymore. They were covering their tracks. And if they were willing to lie on paper, who knows what else they were hiding. The next morning, I put on the uniform, not to intimidate, just to make it clear who I was. I pulled up to the edge of my ranch road as the first dumper truck rolled in like clockwork. I stepped out, badge showing, and held up my hand. The driver hit the brakes, hard, confusion all over his face. Within minutes, the whole convoy was backed up, engines idling, drivers getting out of their cabs. I asked for paperwork, permits, access rights, anything. Of course, none of them had a thing. That's when I radioed it in. Deputies rolled up not long after, and we issued a full stop order. The trucks were forced to turn back. I handed the HOA's president a folder full of photos, maps, and legal documents proving they trespassed, caused property damage, and violated multiple county regulations. Her face dropped when I told her that I'd also forwarded everything to the county commissioners and the state land office. But just when I thought it was over, she hit me with one last twist. She pulled out her phone and said, "We already bought an easement from the last owner. This isn't your fight." My stomach dropped for a second, until I flipped through the deed records again. The easement she was holding? It was on different parcel, 2 miles away. Someone had sold her a useless right, and she'd built her whole project on that assumption. That silence, that was the sound of her realizing they'd just sunk a fortune into someone else's mistake. In the weeks that followed, the trucks disappeared for good. The HOA halted their project, and the county stepped in to investigate the entire operation. Turns out, they'd skipped more than a few steps, no proper permits, no real land surveys, and no communication with local residents. The supposed easement they banked everything on. It had been sold years ago during a messy foreclosure, and the current owner had no idea what they were talking about. The whole thing unraveled fast. Out on the ranch, things slowly started returning to normal. I got the road repaired with help from the county, and a few neighbors pitched in too. Something about standing up for each other makes folks stronger out here. We fixed the broken fence, patched the pasture, and even built a better gate to make sure something like that never happens again. The HOA president quietly resigned a month later. No apology, no explanation, just gone. Word spread quick, though, and a few folks who'd been afraid to speak up before started sharing their own stories about how that HOA had pushed people around for years. Now, the board's being restructured, and people are finally getting a voice in how things are run. Funny thing is, they thought I was just some guy with a cowboy hat and a dirt road. But respect goes a long way out here, and when that's gone, folks notice. So if there's one thing to take from this, never underestimate the quiet ones, especially if they wear a badge.